So, well, not to complain all that much, but even still, it's still something. Look at this. So at Morrison's, using that self-service wash machine there, and partway through were all the workers. I noticed some PPE equipment in the tumble dryer, and there's the chemicals. It smells a bit like Caruso, isn't that weird? Look at it. It's over all of the washing. Brand new clothing, and it's all ruined because someone used, what, PPE, or did you stop it halfway through, turn the power off? Now, there has been something said to Morrison's, but that's with these companies that take limited liability. These chemicals are over children's clothes, by the way, just from using the machine. Look at that. It's over all of it. So a lot of clothing has been wrecked. That's Morrison's. So there's already been an email wrote to Morrison's, but I would just be on being caution, to be honest. And that's another thing with these companies that put up a little plaque saying, "We take no responsibility." Yeah, and then those workers that were there conveniently doing the tarmacking in Morrison's, and then Morrison's put limited company, put another limited company, and then use limited companies to go around and wreck people's stuff. Chemicals. What are these chemicals on here? Does anyone want to do an analytical test on these? Give them a quick dip and find out what it is? Look at this. Absolutely disgusting. Now, what is the toxicology on that to a child? It stinks. I can't tell you how bad it really does smell. Really bad. Now, there was a slight hesitancy of whether we were going to use that or not. And do you know what? I think that what comes out of this is at least you know who all these people are. So Morrison's, yeah, you kind of lied when you first came into this particular town, didn't you? That you were going to be bringing down the prices on things and it was going to be adjusted just right. That's what got you it. So you tricked the people to bring your company here, and it actually hasn't lowered its prices, really, has it? It's on par with everything else in the town. Now that's something. So you lied to get here, and then you put in all of these companies that you don't vet. But you hold CCTV though, don't you? And you hold computers and everything else, and CCTV just in case anyone damages your precious little stuff. But when it comes to getting this investigated, let me guess, you take no responsibility for it. And it's funny because a few videos before, I said thanks to China and America, really, that I've actually got some clothes. And then the clothes get damaged. I mean, there's one little flag for you. Look at that. And how many are you all involved with this? Because it's repetitive, isn't it? Convenient at the right amount of time. And how many other people have had this type of situation because they use a self-service machine that's not vetted? It's just stuck outside somewhere. All you care about is your own technology. You only use the law. This is criminal damage. This is criminal damage. But let me guess, limited liability. You use these at your own risk. So once again, we find now that near enough most of our clothes, not all, just most, are now ruined and have to be thrown in the bin. Because of what? Because of criminals. Because of legalized criminals that work with this limited responsibility crap, limited liability. And then you tell me whether companies should be hiding behind limited liability or whether they should be done for criminal damage. All the way. Look at that. If this was a house, if this was one of the gentry's house, right? What would this be? Oh, criminal damage. We've got to take you to one of our corrupted courts, haven't we? Oh, you assault people, limited liability. Physical assault, mental, all of it. Look at that. Well, it's nice to know who you all are. And this is coincidence, one thing after another, is it? Wow. Shows that we're sure as shit pressing your buttons. So no, I would also be working towards buying Morrison's out, not buying them out, by giving an alternate that becomes cheaper than the crap that you can sell. Look at that. So if you're playing around with all of this stuff here, and just let me ask you something, Morrison's, and you make food really cheap and people come over who have never experienced a certain amount of chemicals before, which can cause behavioral differences in their society, It definitely does with children. But we've been subject to that type of poison for a very long time, haven't we? Drugs are illegal because they contain or they create mental health and they alter the mind state. Yeah. So what happens with people that have never eaten this particular type of candies or cheap food with all of these chemicals in it before? How do they act when they eat it here, long term? Because we've got immune to it, haven't we? Slowly but surely you become immune to it, a bit like the rodent does with the poison. So bit by bit, although we can say that the rat eats the poison, let's just call it posse, and it starts to build up an immunity to it, so it has to become stronger each time. Well, few humans are no different, really. And our generations have been eating these E numbers. What else is there? Certain other types of stuff. You guys are renowned for playing around with food. I mean, from arsenic in all sorts of stuff. It's even in pipe work. What else have you done? You've played around with arsenic in medicine, lead in paint, lead in petroleum. I mean, you've got a bit of a track record for poisoning people slowly but surely, but also it creates an immunity. And our bloodlines that have been forced this way because of poverty, yes, so we could say poor, right? The poor eat this. You have that kosher because it all costs expensive for you, so you eat better foods. So during our bloodlines, we've gained a level of immunity where those poisons, let's say, have to be increased. Chemical value has to be increased. Now, what about people that have not walked through that bloodline, are experiencing it at our immune level? Because we've been eating it for generation after generation after generation after generation, where it used to be strong here, but because we eat it, you had to up the strength each time, don't you? I don't trust any of you, to be honest, but there we are. Is that because I don't trust myself? Haha, yeah, all right. Funny, the one who make the rules often have that little statement. But anyway, so we eat it, and then somebody else who comes from outside of that eats it at this level, sidestepping all of this. Who's going to react a little bit mad compared to the average population? Isn't this it? That would be interesting. So someone that comes here to Britain who haven't travelled this bloodline of changing the chemicals. Oh, look, it makes those children hyperactive. Oh, they've stopped getting hyperactive. Shall we up the ingredient in the thing that they're eating? Yeah, there we are. There we are. We see this disruption. And this disruption then allows you to charge more tax, which could be C tax, council tax, for more cops, right? For more psychology, behavior therapists, all of this sort of shit. More drugs to fix these people because they're very bad, right? Free in the sweets, but we'll charge them later. Is this the type of the process that we're seeing? Because I often look at food and it's a fascinating thing, really. What happens if you take someone versus someone who has been subject to that immunity, immune, bit by bit at this level, and you take someone who hasn't adapted to that immunity? What's the reaction going to be? Out of the two, if I could guess this one is going to overreact compared to this one. This one's been eating the food and therefore becoming immune. These have never eaten the food, and it's now a sickening strength. You'll notice this with drugs, by the way, that people that take a lot of drugs have to take an extra amount of drugs in order to get an effect from it. So this person has been on it for 20 years. They have built up this thing called a tolerance, a toll. So they can take this much, but you couldn't give that much to someone who was just starting out because they would overdose. That's interesting, isn't it? They would overdose or they would act completely very, very erratic in society. Now, what's the difference with this? Drugs affect the mind, affect the ability. You can give certain kids certain sweets, and it causes them to overreact so much so that these children are then labeled as out of control. They're actually acting exactly how they would act under the influence That's a UTI. That's really weird. Under the influence. So they are under the influence of a chemical equals drug, which makes them act. Which to the rest of society looking at would say acting abnormal. But if you understood that they've taken a chemical, and a chemical, you wouldn't give your children drugs, but you would give your kids these. Interesting. And then when they start to act out, you would say it's abnormal. But to anyone that understands how drugs affect the brain and behavior, which is creating a chemical imbalance, this is a normal reaction. Under the circumstances, normal. This then becomes a normal reaction. Isn't that interesting? Hey, Morrisons. Hey, Morries, you know, with your little limited liability and all the rest of it. Why do you guys need limited liability when you deal with food? Beyond interesting, really. Farmers, you got limited liability, farmers? Probably not. That's interesting. That's a very interesting thing. And then this thing of an overreaction, which is a normal reaction under the influence, that is very normal. It's like trying to expect someone who drinks alcohol to stay sober. But there again, someone that's been drinking a large amount of alcohol for 20 years needs X amount of alcohol in order before they feel it. Because they've built up tolerance. Once they've built up the tolerance, could you ever imagine a person drinking that much? What would it do? It would create alcohol poisoning. This person would become very sick. Among other things, would they be in control of themselves? Probably not. That's a large amount. They would only need a very little amount to be able to feel what this person feels at this amount. So now we look at this and we open up the borders and everything else, and we have been subjecting our species to E numbers, chemical exposure of weird and wonderful things that our population of Brits have built up a tolerance to this poison. It is affecting you, just not as noticeably. Somebody else comes out, or here, who has never experienced that before. How will they react? How are they going to react to that? You're taking it at this level, and they come over, and theirs is this level, but they are now subject to it at this level. What do you think the reaction is going to be? It's going to be nothing good. Somewhere along the line, I often wonder about this. Everything has a reaction. Everything has a reaction, depending on what you take. It causes a reaction. So yes, in some instances, maybe this isn't all of it. But there again, I've noticed that people who have never experienced these sweets before, they eat these sweets, their behavior completely changes. Whereas I thought my behavior was changing on these sweets, not as much. Theirs was far more dramatic than mine. That's an interesting thing. Don't you find that fascinating? How many years worth of subject to poison before they reach a tolerance to it? Will they be ready for that? And therefore I wonder whether we could get the same reaction if we took the same food to other nations for people to eat it for free, to see whether there is a reaction to this. And if there is, follow the food, right? Wow, what a self-defense mechanism this is. So yes, in two lights I can see this, but there again. And there is the whole conditioning here to this, what most people in Britain have forgotten because of all of these ones that get everything that they want. There's that anger. Everybody grows with this anger, this breaking anger. They have this anger inside them that they're suppressing because life is just that way. You've got to accept it that way. That anger factored in with this intoxication, let's say, process that we do, that is a recipe for disaster. The brain is going to break down. I wonder if this is a food issue that we see. Because you guys love your limited liability, and to make something cheaper, you're adding in more ingredients and saying that you can sell that for cheaper, even though you lot there are all adding in more ingredients. Well, as long as it benefits your dentistries that you've managed to privatise, as long as it benefits your hospitals that you've gone to privatise, as long as it benefits your housing association that you've privatised, as long as it benefits your water companies that you've privatised, as long as it protects the energy companies that you've privatised. I mean, the money, right? The money. You need people dumb a little bit, wouldn't you? A little bit drugged? What are you going to do? Are you going to wait till you get someone a little bit of drink? Okay, now we're going to play a card game whilst you're under. Do you see how it works? Under the influence, you can't operate a car properly. Under the influence of alcohol. So what do you think of being under the influence of all these E numbers and chemicals and everything else is going to make you do? It's not going to make you operate in society very well, is it? No. So of course when people privatize your shit, well, of course, oh, you just be like a drunk person. You can I just have your little bit of your wallet, please? Oh, of course you can, sir. Yeah, do you want my jacket as well, sir? Because you're not operating correctly as a human being. Because you are under the influence. So are you making great decisions? If anyone's under the influence, you're going to go and seek wisdom from a drunk person? Probably not. Very, very unlikely. That is an interesting process here. The chemical signatures are on everything. You add more to food. You've got limited liability, which doesn't make sense. Why do you need limited liability? And then you lie when you say that you want to come into a town in order to make it better for people. That's why you've increased the prices on everything. And then what? It wouldn't be surprising to me if you were the same as all these other shops that are around in the area, except for one. Your prices are exactly the same as one another that are around. Isn't that interesting? I thought that Morrison's was the big M was coming here to drive down that cost. When it actually, well, let's say it how it is, Lidl is the one that has drove down and made it easier for people, not Morrison's. Morrison's, you made it more expensive since you've came. You said that you were going to be offering jobs to people. That's why you got these self-service machines everywhere, haven't you, that damage things for people. Certain people, though, isn't it? I've noticed that, certain people, but there again, you slap your card into it, you can't pay in cash. Therefore, you need to know who everyone is. Then you have people come and use it and put their, PPE in it? Seems like a good excuse to me. So then what? Put chemicals. This literally stinks. Did you want to take this and test it? That is interesting, isn't it? All these chemicals. And what, for kids? For people that are trying to get by washing their stuff? What if that's mum with school clothes? Huh? What if this is someone else and you lot are not going to take responsibility for that? Isn't that interesting? Corporations that are making billions per year. Can't even take responsibility for people who have got pennies to live on. That's interesting, isn't it? Just cost of living just keeps on going and going. And waste products. Waste products everywhere. It's a bit of insight into how you would do it with food as well, isn't it? You wouldn't put anything else on it to make it rot really quickly. Never mind that. Are you thinking straight? Are you free of all of these chemicals? Cool. So then we throw it all in a recycling centre somewhere, in landfill, and it's creating large amounts of methane. I mean, yeah, all for profit, right? Why giving yourselves a golden ticket out of any situation. No, I think you should be responsible for this stuff. You want to house it on your property, you will take responsibility for it. You want to damage things? And criminal damage is what that amounts to. Who puts PPE, personal protective equipment, from when you're working around with asphalt and chemicals and carcinogens, which is a cancer-causing ingredient, and then you go and throw that into a wash machine, get it dried at the time, and then all of your chemicals leach, the oils leach inside the drum, and then into people's clothing. It would be okay for you, would be a type of person that would say that it's okay for people to drink alcohol at a young age, for kids to drink alcohol. No. It would be okay for them to smoke. No. Would it be all right for the kids to have energy drinks? No. Well, that's interesting. But cancer-causing chemicals on their clothes, this is legit in your book. This is okay. This is acceptable. Hey, Morrison, step up. Step up. You know, you big M. Come on. Going to investigate it, or is it just not your responsibility? The company that owns that, not your responsibility. So therefore, you're legally allowed to create cancer by proxy then. That's fine, is it? And these companies, no training, no responsibility, no nothing. Wow, that's interesting. Where have I heard that before? This won't cause an NHS to overrun if this is how you're acting. That is disgusting. That is absolutely disgusting. A bunch of little cowards. That's what it's all turning into, isn't it? The more push, the more reaction. Isn't that interesting? Wow. And you guys run society, do you? Is this how you run it? Which then is making problems that people are assuming that it's because of a different race, perhaps. Is it? Or is it because this race here has been poisoned without knowing it? And then you subject people who haven't got that immunity to a higher amount, you are going to see these problems occur. One way or another, who's looking at this stuff? Anyone digging into this? It can't be good for you. It most certainly cannot be good for you. Wow, wow, wow. So now I think taking control of the food is probably going to be a good idea, isn't it? And remove it away from certain shops around. Because if this is what you're doing with anything else, then why would you not do it there? Because you can get away with it. This behavior is so ingrained. And whether this was deliberate or not, well, it's a bit weird. I mentioned it in a video a few days before. And then a little bit after that, something happened where I didn't want to go and do this. If I'd have listened to that, actually, two things. If I wasn't convinced that this would be a good idea to go and do this, I felt something was off. Which actually, it did more things because it's proved to people around that this is weird. Now, if you did deliberately plan that, then it's pretty amazing. But what it's done is it's opened everybody's eyes. That's the thing that it's done. It's brought clarity. So, yeah, should it have gone this way? Bit inconvenient, but we'll get by. Just a little bit childish, but we'll get by. But what a waste of fabric. What do we do? Go take it to a charity? Who's going to want that? We're going to throw it in a bin? Fucking hell, man. You guys got insurances. What for? What for? You take no responsibility for anything, so why do you need insurance? Oh, never mind that. You've got cancer-causing ingredients. That's what that is. And you guys are reckless with it. That's interesting. Wow. If this was deliberate. Wow. Interesting. Insight. For me, I'm going to take it however it lands. Where I haven't landed on that one just yet. But I'll take the data that comes from this. Because if you're doing this here, and it seems to be a lot of things that seem to be collected in this. You lied about the prices. You said that you were going to bring those down. They've gone through the roof. And there again, better people in this world who have loads of bars of gold don't really give a shit, do they? You don't care, do you? Of course you don't. You can get access to all of this sort of stuff. You can buy yourselves away from this type of society. Look at that. Talk about equality. I don't think so. This would be, as long as it never affects you, right? Which then I will look at smoking. It's the same process with smokers, isn't it? And smoking. We don't smoke the shit, we sell it. Which is pretty cruel because it's a stimulant. Look at that. Again, another toxin and then take no responsibility. And then we're doing it with food as well. See this pattern playing out. And then does this create a under the influence sort of society? And some of them are immune to it, which makes sense. And the others who are not, that's where you're going to get your reaction. And therefore, it would be sending all of this type of bullshit food that we've got here from Morrison's and everywhere else. And we go and give it to a third world country, should we? I think it's cruel. And then see how they respond there. Is it the same way, I wonder? What is it about here that makes people go fucking nuts? What is it? What's the change? It's not like it there, but as soon as you come here, you start to eat our food, drink our water, and yoink. You either get incredibly sick, or you become incredibly violent, very angry. Why? And then to the rest of the world, we look like very violent people, don't we? Our culture. I wonder if it's got something to do with the food. I really am reckoning it's got something to do with our food. There's something in it. And therefore it keeps us just enough to be dumbed down. Intoxicated just enough just to be able to move assets above us. Because on one side of it, we have a reaction to this stuff that happens in our society, but when it happens the other way, we got no response. That's weird, mate. Isn't that weird? Compliance. Well, there you are. There you are, Morries, and that company over there, and how many other people have gone through that as well. Fucking hell. And you asphalters dealing with dangerous chemicals. Gee me. Gee me. Now, was it your PPE, or was that just the way you made it look? Which makes sense, because you would have stuck it in the smaller washing machine that was there. Thankfully, it was in the smaller one. Unluckily for anyone else that's used that smaller one, majority of the stuff got put into the bigger one. Oh my days. Look at that. Chemical. It looks like creosote, like something. I don't know. It's very stinky. It stinks. All over the clothes, over the kids' clothing. Does anyone want to take some responsibility for this? And for anyone else's damages that have been done? Horsehair, I can overlook. Dog beds, I can overlook that too. Chemicals like this that absolutely stink and wreck the clothes? No. No, I can't overlook that. It's dangerous. Chemical that to a point where you can taste it. That's fucking weird, mate. Savage. Are we waiting for the CCTV to elapse, are we? From the Sunday that you were all there? Ridiculous, mate. No responsibility for anything or anyone. What a society we live in.